I don't know why I agreed to go camping. I've never been the outdoorsy type. Give me a warm bed, a roof over my head, and a solid Wi-Fi connection any day. But my buddy Jake had been on my case for weeks. "Come on, man," he'd say. "It'll be fun. Just you, me, and the great outdoors. No stress, no distractions, just us and nature." I should have said no. I should have stayed home. But I didn't. And now I'm sitting here writing this because I need to tell someone what happened. I need to get it out before it drives me insane. This is the story of the worst weekend of my life. This is the story of what happened when we went camping. It started like any other trip. Jake picked me up early Friday morning, his truck packed to the brim with gear. Tents, sleeping bags, coolers, you name it. He was grinning from ear to ear, like a kid on Christmas morning. I, on the other hand, was already regretting my decision. The drive took about 3 hours. We headed deep into the national forest, far from civilization. No cell service, no people, just miles and miles of untouched wilderness. Jake had chosen the spot, a secluded area near a lake. He said it was perfect. Quiet, peaceful, and completely off the grid. When we arrived, the place looked like something out of a postcard. The lake was crystal clear, reflecting the blue sky above. The trees were tall and green, their leaves rustling in the breeze. It was beautiful, I'll give it that. But even then, I felt a strange unease, like the woods were watching us. We set up camp near the water, pitching our tents and building a fire pit. Jake was in his element, whistling as he worked. I tried to shake off the weird feeling, telling myself it was just my nerves. I wasn't used to being this far from civilization, that's all. But as the sun began to set, the feeling only grew stronger. The first night was off. Not bad exactly, but not right either. The woods were too quiet. No crickets, no owls, not even the sound of the wind. Just silence. It was unnerving, like the forest was holding its breath. Jake didn't seem to notice. He was too busy, roasting marshmallows and telling stories around the fire, but I couldn't relax. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves made me jump. Then around midnight I heard it. A sound that didn't belong, a low, guttural growl coming from somewhere in the trees. It wasn't an animal I recognized. It was deeper, heavier, like the rumble of thunder, but alive. I sat up in my tent, my heart pounding, straining to hear more, but the sound didn't come again. I told myself it was my imagination, but sleep didn't come easy. The next morning I woke to find our campsite disturbed. The food we'd left out was gone, the cooler tipped over and emptied. At first I thought it was a bear, but then I saw the footprints. They were large, too large to be a bear, and the shape was wrong. They looked almost human, but not quite. The toes were too long, the arch too high. And there were only 3 toes. I showed Jake, but he just laughed it off. "Probably a raccoon or something," he said. "Don't worry about it." But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Something had been here. Something had been watching us. We spent the day fishing and hiking, trying to enjoy the trip, but the unease never left me. The woods felt different, like they were closing in around us. The trees seemed taller, their branches twisting together like skeletal fingers. The sunlight barely reached the ground, and the air felt heavy, oppressive. That night the growl came again. Closer this time. Much closer. I gripped my flashlight, my breath shallow, my eyes fixed on the tent flap. The sound lasted longer this time, rising and falling in a way that made my stomach churn. And then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The next few days blurred together. The growling came every night, always closer, always louder. I started seeing things out of the corner of my eye. Shadows moving where there shouldn't be shadows, shapes that didn't belong. Once, I swear, I saw a figure standing between the trees, tall and thin, its limbs too long, its head tilted, at an unnatural angle. But when I turned to look, It was gone. Jake still didn't seem to notice. Or if he did, he didn't care. He was too busy enjoying the trip, oblivious to the growing sense of dread that was consuming me. I tried to talk to him about it, but he just brushed me off. "You're being paranoid," he said. "It's just the woods, relax." But I couldn't relax, not with the feeling that something was out there watching us, waiting. And then, on the fourth night, it found us. We were sitting by the fire, trying to stay warm, when we heard it. Not the growl this time, but footsteps. Slow, deliberate, crunching through the underbrush. My heart raced as I grabbed my flashlight, my eyes darting around the clearing. The footsteps stopped just outside the ring of firelight. I could feel it there, just beyond the edge of the darkness, watching us. "Who's there?" Jake called, his voice steady. There was no answer, just silence. And then a sound that froze my blood, a laugh. Low, rasping, and utterly inhuman. It wasn't a sound that belonged in this world. It was wrong, twisted, and it filled me with a terror I can't describe. Jake stood up, his face pale. "We need to go," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. But before we could move, it stepped into the light. It was tall, too tall, its limbs stretching out like spider legs. Its skin was pale, almost translucent, and its eyes, God, its eyes. They were black, empty, but somehow filled with a malice that made my soul shrivel. It tilted its head, those two long fingers twitching, and it spoke. "You shouldn't have come here." The voice was wrong. It was too many voices at once, layered over each other, some high, some low, some not even human. It echoed in my head, bouncing around like it was trying to burrow into my brain. Jake grabbed my arm, pulling me to my feet. "Run!" he shouted. And we did. We ran like our lives depended on it, because they did. The thing followed us, its footsteps pounding behind us, its laugh echoing through the trees. I don't know how long we ran. It felt like hours, but it could have been minutes. All I know is that when I finally stopped, I was alone. I don't know what happened to Jake. I called for him, screamed his name until my voice was hoarse, but there was no answer. The woods were silent again, the only sound the pounding of my own heart. I wanted to go back to look for him, but I couldn't. I was too scared. So I kept running, stumbling through the dark until I finally collapsed on the side of a road. A passing ranger found me, half dead and babbling incoherently. They took me to a hospital where I spent weeks recovering. Physically, I was fine, but mentally, I'll never be the same. They never found Jake. They searched the woods for days, but there was no trace of him. No footprints, no clues, nothing. It was like he'd vanished into thin air. The rangers said it was probably an animal attack, but I know better. I know what I saw. I know what's out there in the woods, and I know it's still waiting. Sometimes at night I hear the growl. It's faint, far away, but it's there. And I know it's not in my head. It's real. It's coming for me. And one day it will find me again. So if you ever find yourself in the wilderness alone and you hear something that doesn't belong, run. Don't look back. Just run. Because there are things in this world that we're not meant to see. Things that don't belong here, and once they see you, they never let go. I don't know why I'm writing this. Maybe it's because I need someone to believe me. Maybe it's because I need to warn you. Whatever the reason, just know this. The woods are not your friend. They're not peaceful or quiet or safe. They're alive and they're hungry. So stay away. Stay far, far away, because once you go camping, you might not come back.